Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 14th, 2012 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone, and if you're either here or watching this meeting from home, I'm deeply sorry. It's my privilege to call tonight's meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda on either side of the room if you'd like to pick one up and follow along with our events tonight. We welcome you to do so. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, including the items that we'll be talking about tonight, as well as an opportunity for general comments on items of a general nature. It is our custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this point in time, I would ask everyone here to please stand and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. May I ask our fine village clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Rankin, Commissioner Barnett,
Here.
Commissioner Neustadt,
Here.
Commissioner Durkin,
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck,
Here.
Commissioner Schnell, here. Mayor Tully.
Here. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda are minutes of prior council meetings, and tonight we have 3 sets of minutes to accept from our executive session minutes for approval only from December 6, 2011, council retreat minutes from February 6, 2012, and minutes of our regular council meeting that was held on February 7th, 2012. Are there any changes, corrections, comments, or contortions from any members of the council? Hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve all 3 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are approved as presented. That brings us to item 4 on our agenda tonight, which is a segment of the meeting where we entertain comments of a general nature. If there are any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any items that are not going to be specifically discussed on our agenda tonight, now would be the time for it. Ms. Earl, may I ask a favor?
Sure.
Mr. Casa is about to burst if he doesn't share with us some news. May I ask that he please, that if you please,
I wanted to be the first person to use this new podium.
well, he gave me a little candy heart today, and I have to return the favor.
I agree.
So a box of chocolates will get you everywhere. Mr. Casa, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Tully and Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak first. I'd like to use...
And please remind everyone what your position is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the
community.
president of the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation. At most village council meetings, I'd like to take 2 minutes during public forum to either update you on an existing project or to announce a new business project coming in, or maybe a local existing business that's expanding their operations. Tonight I've got what I hope you'll find to be some exciting news. Each quarter, most of the major real estate brokerage firms in the United States publish quarterly reports on transactions and economic data from the region they're covering in that previous quarter. This is true again of all the major brokerage firms in the Chicago area. These reports are read by brokers, developers, corporate real estate managers, and decision makers. They're probably one of the most important things you can have good news reported in. The fourth quarter of 2011, all the major brokerage firms have submitted their quarterly reports. They came out this week. And I am proud to say that, and happy to say, that in the fourth quarter of 2011, under the list of the top 10 lease transactions in the entire Chicago suburbs, we had the first and third largest transactions. J.P. Morgan Chase has extended their lease at Highland Landmark 5. J.P. Morgan Chase, which is one of the world's leaders in banking, financial services, transaction processing, asset management, and private equity, they will be taking 173,000 square feet in Highland Landmark 5, and that is the largest transaction in the fourth quarter in the entire Chicago suburban market. And Hobby Global Solutions, LLC, has signed a lease for a new world headquarters at 3500 Lacey Road, where Sara Lee is going to be vacating their space, and that's located at Esplanade at Locust Point. Hobby is a world leader in packaging services, supply chain analytics, merchandising planning, and promotion management. The company has offices throughout Europe, Asia, and Latin America, and their 140,000 square foot lease represents the third largest lease transaction in the Chicago suburbs in this most recent quarter. And this represents an expansion of their current space that they have in Downers Grove. Very happy to have these two world-class companies in our community, and even happier that we've got such good news to report that's being reported on our behalf throughout the Chicago area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cassa. That is indeed fantastic news to have not one but two in not just the top 10, but the top 5 in terms of world-class lease transactions.
Top 3.
Yeah, well, that's even better.
Even better. Thank you.
I was trying to, 2 out of the top 3. That's fantastic, and obviously we're thrilled to have those world-class companies here in our world-class community, and we continue to be a premier location for corporate headquarters as well as top-class office space. So that's great that we can continue to expand that reputation here in Downers Grove. Ms. Earl, thank you very much for your patience. I greatly appreciate it.
And that
Please.
is why I'm here. Mayor and Council, Doug Kozlowski as well, staff. I'm here to thank you for this new podium. After 5 years of coming to council meetings weekly, watching people struggle with the microphone, which you can now adjust, have to stand behind a rickety little podium. Today we have something solid, and unless you're standing in this position, you don't appreciate that. This really is probably not a huge cost, but will make a huge difference to the people who are standing here and doing presentations to you. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for listening to me when I complained about the old one.
You're welcome, and for the record, you will go down in history as being the first person to have spoken at the new podium.
Thank you.
Mr. Cass is going to give up that spot. And thanks to Commissioner Barnett for donating the wood, and I think Commissioner Durkin and Commissioner Neustadt spent Saturday building it, and Commissioner Waldeck and Schnell painted it, so it looks really nice.
I'm glad my industrial arts class came handy, eh?
So you might want to be very careful about the safety aspects of
In case
that.
anyone wants to know, that's Ipswich color. I think it's 131. Red color is my trim at home.
Do I need to restate my name?
Good evening. Yes, please, because we are taking minutes, and so for the benefit of the folks at home, if you wouldn't mind sharing your name and address for us, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, I'm Deanne Gordon, and I live at 6237 Pershing in unincorporated Downers Grove, and this is going back to the Walgreens issue that we had discussed last week and comes to a vote next week. We feel that this is an inappropriate zoning. Our neighbors and other people that are incorporated also feel this by number because of the comprehensive future land use study being low intensity. We do not feel that this Walgreens facility we feel it is a high volume retail. So just right off the books, we feel it's yes, we are for progress. We are for the betterment of Downers Grove. We are not against any of that, but we feel that this is not the appropriate fit. This is not the appropriate business for this corner. That being said, which is no surprise to you, if it should go forward, as residents in the surrounding area, and my property is one of those within 250 feet of this, there are some contingencies that we feel are necessary if this should go through. Some things would be that the one on Belmont right now sells alcohol, and this is within a block of our elementary school, 2 blocks of our high school. We would want it seen that there will not be a license issued for alcohol at this facility ever. The other thing would be that originally they were saying they were going for a 24-hour drive-through. Now they've kind of backed off of that. We want it clear that you want the same hours as the Belmont facility, then it's an 8 to 10 thing, and it's not going to go 24-hour store, not 24-hour driveway, because that does affect us where we live. The other thing we don't want is the cut through on Pershing, because they're going to go try and go around that. They can't go eastbound onto 63rd coming out of there during rush hour, during the school busy hours. They're going to come up Pershing, and we have no sidewalks. We're unincorporated. It's a definite hazard to the children, not only the walkers to Indian Trail and to the South High School or the teen drivers, but also our O'Neill buses come 61st and Pershing and Woodward. There are children emptying out of buses on a no sidewalk. They're on the road. So this is truly a hazard. So we'd like to see a sidewalk at a minimum on at least one side of Woodward, on Walgreens side, because you're putting these kids in peril, because these people will go north on Woodward. And, you know, they will go up Pershing, and I think that what we need to do is, like I've seen on Ogden, where they said no right turn or no turn on Pershing during like the peak hours, the rush hour traffic. So they're not cutting through Pershing to beat the light at Belmont and coming out on 59th and hitting the light there and going, or cutting up to Maple. I think they did that effectively on Ogden, and they had it like for the morning rush hour, say, I think we said 7 to 9 and then 4 to 7 in the afternoon or evening. I don't know if we can think of anything else, if we can email you anything else further in before the vote on Tuesday, because again, for the record, we think this is not an appropriate fit, but if it's going to be forced on us, then there's certain things that we think are really imperative to be handled.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon.
Thank you.
And you know, obviously, everyone heard what was said before. And in fact, I think there was a request for information from a number of members of the council based on the conversation that took place at the workshop. And you know, far from rushing along, we actually deferred it a week so that we can get the answers to those questions, get the additional information, have time to consider it, and then consider it for a vote next week. So there's a little bit of additional time. And certainly, you know, there are 4 different elements to this project. There's the annexation, there's the rezoning when it comes into the village. It has to be zoned something. And then there's the consolidation, and at least in my opinion, it all comes down to the 4th item, which is the special use. Is the special use appropriate under any circumstances? And if the answer is yes, then what are those circumstances? So I think all the conditions that you've outlined, and as well as the others that we've heard about, are entirely appropriate to be discussing, because the municipal code allows for conditions to be placed on special uses. Obviously, we have to strike a balance of reasonableness, but yes, those are all things that can be considered, and we'll have to work with, you know, the folks from the petitioner's side aren't here tonight, but if they were, they would obviously have their say as well. But I think, you know, all of us are listening and taking that into account, understanding we have to work within the parameters of what our zoning ordinance are, and you know, we do have rules, and everybody expects to have the rules apply to them in a fair manner, and you know, we get to decide ultimately what those conditions are. So we very much appreciate that, and are certainly taking them into account. Just one real quick thing with respect to those conditions is the village attorney will no doubt correct me if I step out of bounds here. When we place conditions on the grant of a special use, that is a condition of that special use going forward. So if it were, I think in order for those conditions to change, for example, the hours of operation, the petitioner would have to come back to the council and get permission, so there'd be another opportunity for public comment and input and discussion. It wouldn't just happen overnight.
I'm sorry, would we be notified being 250 feet from the facility?
We can certainly make sure that that happens.
Because okay.
No, the only reason I'm stopping you is because no one can hear you at home.
Okay.
But the question was, would the residents in the area be notified if there was a future request to change the conditions of a special use? And the answer is we would most certainly notify those who we know to be interested in that topic. So thank you for your comments and those of your neighbors, and we fully understand your position in the first instance. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Please have your name and address.
My name is Ricardo Castaneda, and I live at 6208 Woodward. I'm right in the middle of this project. And there's 2 items that I'm going to bring to the board so you can understand our feelings about this project. When I moved in to the area, there was flooding. Every time it rained for 3 days straight, 4 houses would get flooded. My house is right in the middle where you can put a boat. You could actually put a boat in there. The water comes this high to your stomach where I live. Thanks to a lady named Uma that lives behind on Pershing next to Ms. D, she made enough noise for the county to put an easement. The last time I was here, I asked the developer, and I asked the board, and I asked the gentlemen that were working in behalf of the developer, what would be the impact of them trying to raise the level of the field, because that area goes down in a pitch, I would say probably 14 feet, because on top there's a hill. There's a hill that goes into 63rd. If you're going south on Woodward, you could actually see the top of a bus coming to the hill. And they didn't have the answer, because I was hoping they would have somebody here from the water systems where they can tell us and put us at ease, because my fear is that they're talking about, everybody's making conversation about 2 lanes going from 63rd all the way down to 59th Street, Maple, and 2 lanes coming this way. As it is, we already have enough traffic coming from the metro station. Everybody's taking shortcuts through Pershing and through Woodward. You can see them. If you want to go get your mail across the street, you have to really be careful, because they come flying there at 45 miles an hour. But going back to, we would like to know, all the residents around that area on Woodward, we paid a lot of money. We paid almost $20,000 for sewers. My fear is there going to be any hidden costs when they start breaking ground, picking up concrete, putting down concrete, that they're not going to damage that very expensive system that Downers Grove was part of helping us get a sewer system. Woodward has a sewer system from 63rd all the way to 62nd and maybe halfway before 59th Street. Some people have the money to connect, some people don't have the money to connect. My fear is that later I'm going to get a piece of paper sent by somebody saying, Ricardo, you owe $2,000, $3,000 because this was not in the project of Walgreens building this. Now this street is going to be tore up. 5 years ago, we just got Michigan water. We had to pay. I don't mind. But now the sewer was very expensive, and there was a lot of hidden costs that they didn't tell us. We all went, hey, hooray, let's get the sewer. After a while, $4,000 for the permit, $4,000 for the hookup, and I think a $10,000 deal for 10 years if you want to pay it in payments. I would like, Mr. Mayor, that somebody would check into this system that they're going to put, if it passes, to let us know so we could get our pocketbook ready for any hidden expenses for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments, and perhaps if you can maybe give your name to Mr. Baker, who's at the end there closest to you, we can make sure that we can follow up with you, but I think the short answer is probably that we're obviously not interested in any activity that would detrimentally impact existing utilities in that area, and certainly not looking to incur any cost to the neighborhood of the type that you're describing, but we'll be happy to follow up with you if you wouldn't mind touching base with Mr. Baker. Thank you. Any other questions or comments of a general nature from members of the audience? Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, commissioners and staff. I'm a little disturbed at the lack of common sense in spreading the salt on the streets. I think this thing has really gotten out of hand. A couple of weeks ago we had a dusting of snow, and they put a lot of salt on. For no reason. I can't see that. I can see them putting salt at the intersections, places like that, but they're spreading it over the whole road.
What streets are you referring to, Mr. Falish?
Well, I'm on Prairie, basically.
Okay, well, that's important because sometimes they're not streets that we have jurisdiction over, and so when we get these questions or concerns about salt distribution, sometimes it's the county, sometimes it's IDOT. That's why I want to know what street you're referring to.
No, this is all Downers Grove.
This is your part of Prairie.
Right. Yeah, I saw the truck going down the street with his blade not down on the pavement, spreading salt and the snow behind to make slush, which is really bad because actually you get slush, and that can be as slippery as snow or ice. And I think it's a problem that there's been vestiges of salt weeks after the salt is all gone. I don't know what they can do. I've complained about this a couple of years ago too. What are the parameters that they decide when they're going to spread salt or not? I think that's a problem. And okay, that's about it.
Thank you. Actually, thank you, Mr. Falish. That's actually a question that comes up every single winter, and typically at this point in the year, we would have had a summary of what both the snow plowing policy is and the use of salt, because typically we would have been through a lot of that activity so far this year. Fortunately, we haven't had to have that conversation this year because we've had such a extraordinarily mild winter. There hasn't been a lot of snowfall, which hopefully will be great come budget time in terms of salt usage. But it is a reoccurring conversation, so one of the things that we've mentioned from time to time, we probably have a fixed point in the year where we just sort of remind everybody what is done and why it's done and when it's done. And obviously, people can take issue with it, but it's really one of those things where you, again, try to strike a balance. And I'm not prepared to go into the details with you right now, but that's something that, you know, perhaps before next winter we can do so that people at least understand what it is that's being done and why it's done, because obviously we do try to follow best practices as much as possible. So thank you for your comment. Good evening, sir.
Hi, my name is Bill Cussman, 4504 Saratoga. You know, we visited you guys a couple weeks back, and we told you concerns about living, you know, by Downers Grove North and some of the expansion things. And, you know, we thought we'd go through the steps and see what we can do here. You know, first of all, you guys told us to go to the district, and we did go to the district, and you were there at the meeting. We appreciate you doing that. Most of the meeting they covered was the superintendent covering himself about how many different ways he tried to contact us. And even my wife, you know, had even told, you know, someone, we don't browse websites and the paper to look at things that are happening, you know, right by us. We were a little frustrated with the meeting when it get really far with the district. So then we thought we'd take the next step, and we're a very organized group. We meet, you know, on a regular basis, and our concerns are not against the school or them, you know, expanding the campus or anything else. We have a real concern about traffic around Downers Grove North, and that's the whole thing that we've been trying to do, and we haven't really gotten a lot of direction on which way. We went to the traffic committee, you know, meeting last week, and they were like, you got to go to the city council. So we're kind of like frustrated as a whole because we can't get any direction and how we can communicate with the city. I mean, this is a $13 million project, and everyone just seems to say, you know what, the district's doing it, and they are kind of, there's not a lot we can do. You know, I think that one of our neighbors here got an email from, you know, from Downers Grove saying that, you know what, there should be, we don't have to do a public hearing on this. It does, and it's just, it's frustrating to us that we cannot communicate our concerns to anybody, and we seem to be getting, you know, the runaround on this huge project. It's a very huge project. Now, whether, you know, we talked about, you know, putting the parking lot, whether they put the parking lot anywhere they want, we're still, my kids go to the north, you know, we live in the area. We as taxpayers are concerned about what's going on. And a couple things that really, you know, we've been talking about is that, there was an email sent to, you know, one of our neighbors saying, you know, that you don't have to have a public hearing. The reason we had our neighbor ask you guys for a public hearing so there'd be a question and answer forum is because we kind of had to contact a lawyer ourselves. We talked to a lawyer who deals in many municipalities, you know, Wheaton, Glen Ellen, and has done work in Downers Grove. And she said, you know, maybe, yeah, the district can do what they want on their property. They don't have to do registered letters to the neighbors like everybody else. Every business, every homeowner has to send a registered, you know, letter. But she said you may want to tell them to have, if there's some type of zoning issue and they're doing this huge project, there should be some, you know, public, you know, forum. So that's why we sent that to you. And apparently, you know, we got a very legal, you know, response saying, you know, we don't have to have a forum. Secondly, she did say that, you know, she was a little confused as, and I don't, you know, we missed some of the meetings. I really don't think that, again, we don't browse the internet to find out what's going on, you know, with every you know, issue in the city. But she did say that we don't feel that you guys vacated Prince without doing your own traffic study. You got the traffic study from the district. And I'm just going to repeat this one more time, and then hopefully, you know, after today, you can come with correspondence on what is going on with the district. And I'll say that by, you know, Downers Grove did a traffic study. There were 3,100 cars daily going down Saratoga. So when we went to traffic commission, we said we can easily bump this up to 3,500. And he said, yeah, you could, because that was included the weekends where there's really not that much traffic. So 3,500 cars. The district did a study between 7 and 9 and 2 and 4, and they said there were 900 cars. So we're missing 2,500 cars that they didn't account for. And here's the problem, and we try to explain this. The 2,500 cars come in rush hour. They come in after 4 all the way to 7 o'clock, okay? There's a ton of cars going down Saratoga. So now you're vacating Prince, where there's hundreds of cars, hundreds of parents picking up kids, and where's the traffic going to go? Mayor, you were at the meeting. They had no plan. They didn't say, okay, we're going to do this. Parents are going to pick up here. The problem is that they're shrinking this lot down to a third of the size of what they have now. It's going to be, you know, like 120 spaces. How? And if you go by Downers any time during rush hour, the lot is packed over there. And you know why? Because there's all these people. I don't even know what activities are going on. But there's about 100 cars. You got 100 cars. You're putting in this smaller lot. How are the parents going to pick up kids here? The problem is, Mayor, there is no plan, and that's what we're concerned about. We're not saying, you know, you're putting this big lot in our parking lot. We're concerned about traffic. We're concerned about safety, yet we don't seem to get any correspondence from anyone, and we still have not seen from the district how are they going to funnel all this out, because there's so much traffic that exit out Prince. This is what it was a big outlet for all the parents, and you probably say, well, you know, they could start parking on Main. Well, they can park on Main now, but they don't. All the activities are on this side. So this is our concern, and if you want, I'm proposing this. I would love if one of your representatives would come out, meet me at 5:30, walk around Downers North. I can show them all the cars. I can show them all the cars on Prince. I can show them all the cars coming down Saratoga, all the cars in the lot, and I can show them our concern about traffic. We're just concerned about traffic. Where they put the parking lot here or there, and I even know, I've talked to people, you know, who live, you know, off of Main too. There's some problems here with the traffic that the district's doing in general, because they haven't presented a proper plan. Their study is bad. I mean, I have the study that Downers did. It totally conflicts with what they've done. So again, I'm going to tell you, I invite any representative. I could meet them at 5:30. We can walk around Downers. We can see where we think there's a big potential problem with the traffic. All this traffic from this little lot that they want to put off of Grant is going to funnel up into Saratoga with all this traffic. Maybe they have a plan. We just haven't seen it, and that's one of our major concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Gusman. And certainly understand that traffic is the number one, number two, and number three concerns of everyone in the neighborhood. We certainly understand and appreciate that. And I was at the meeting where District 99 laid out what their expansion plan is for Downers Grove North, and they very clearly said that they, as a school district, can't solve all the issues by themselves. They're going to have to work in conjunction with the village because of the overlapping or adjacent responsibilities, if you will, of a school district and a municipality. So certainly we're going to have to work with them. They're not going to be able to do it all themselves. Perhaps, actually, I'd be curious, and as long as we're on the topic, sort of from our standpoint, what the timetable is. I don't need to know this right now, but I think all of us are probably interested in, you know, what are the next steps and where we'll be there. There'll be meetings and opportunities, because clearly there's the plan that exists right now. And as we all know, there's what's on paper, then there's what's in the field, and sometimes you have to make adjustments once something is actually built in the field, once you see how people's habits are actually changed, and they always are. But maybe if we had more of a timeline, we can at least share what the process is so that folks in the neighborhood know what to expect, at least from our standpoint. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm just parroting back what the district said, but we can't solve all the problems either, because it really takes a coming together of both entities, which I know that we're doing the best we can to work with the district because we have shared constituents in this regard. But thank you for coming and sharing your comments once again. Any other questions or comments of a general nature? Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roger Bauman. I live at 4500 Prince. I'm also here to speak on the Downers Grove North. Be very brief. I don't want to reiterate everything Bill said. I agree with a lot of what he said, and I share your concerns as well. I don't think any of us are expecting to take issues that are out there in this intersection, and my address is at Prince and Grant, so I'm in the absolute center of this project. So we see what goes on every day, and we really we don't want to come across that we're asking the district to solve problems that are already there. We're more concerned on, we look out our windows at night, we know what's out there right now. I also know what goes on down the street at the parking lot where it is now, and what we see is taking that lot now, shifting it down into our neighborhood, and the school's looking at it from a perspective when the buses are there at night and solving that issue, but we don't really see a good plan for handling the after-school activities. When that parking lot gets shifted into our neighborhood, the traffic that's down the street now combines with the traffic that we know is already outside our door. We're looking at how is that situation really going to be managed, not solve all of our neighborhood problems, but at least don't make it worse than the situation already is. Now, I will give the school credit. We have been talking to Mr. Hiscock and someone with the Downers Grove Police Department. They have made some efforts with doing some enforcement in the area, and that has made a difference. Now, obviously, you can't spend all night out there every night of the week doing enforcement, but a little bit has made a difference, and that's all we're looking for is don't compound the two problems with traffic down the street and what's already there. We just want a solution to know that it isn't going to be any worse, at least, than what it is, and we believe there can actually be improvements in the neighborhood, but we're just not seeing what that traffic or what that management plan is going to look like on day one when school starts next year. We live right at the corner, and I really don't know what the traffic or what's the baseline, what do we think it's going to look like. There's not even that estimate of what it's going to look like that day. So that's from my perspective at that corner, and you know, if I saw some type of at least estimate what it would look like or what we believe it might be, it would make me feel a little better, but I don't. Right now it's sort of like, this is what we're going to do, we're going to move the parking lot, we'll wait and see, and then we'll address problems as they come up. Well,
there's some degree of that, and I hate to prognosticate about it, but I mean, for example, just a recent lesson here with the village is we made some changes to the traffic control at Maple and Main in order to deal with some issues that were there, and then once you implement that, you find out some things that you perhaps didn't appreciate fully until you make the change, and then you have to adjust accordingly, which in that instance the village did. So I'm being completely realistic in that there may be changes that have to be made down the road once you see, no pun intended, once you see the actual impact in the field.
I'm sure
and that can be done.
It made the Maple and Main example. I'm sure you had some estimates of what you'd like to have seen from a traffic perspective. I think the school knows what it would like to see for moving the buses into the parking lot, but I don't think the school has an idea what they'd like to see for the neighborhood for the traffic. They're solving their bus issue, but the traffic in the neighborhood sort of left to wait and see completely, and that's where we, I think, come to a disagreement. So.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments of a general nature? Please, good evening.
Jenny Bauman, 4500 Prince, and I'm here to support my neighbors and again to plead with you. Our frustration is that we've seen a lot of plans for Downers Grove North. We've seen a lot of layouts, a lot of, they've done a very good job laying out how everything is going to look, but not anywhere in any of the open houses that they've had, in the meetings that we've had, there's no plan for traffic. There is a plan for the bus traffic, but again, there's no plan for any of the car traffic. And I guess I don't understand how we vacated an entire street without knowing how it's going to change the flow of traffic. I still can't get beyond that. We've vacated an entire street and not accounted for the traffic that's going to happen after school, after activities, during the extra activities that are going to come along with all of the new fun stuff that's going to happen at North. And we want a plan. We want a plan to see how things are going to happen. We can make a good judgment right now, but we don't want to wait until we're at a point where we can't turn around and we can't make changes, and now the entrances to the parking lots are in these places and we can't move them now because they're already in and millions of dollars have been put in to put them in these places. This project was presented to the city, was presented to the taxpayers, presented to everybody in the interest of student safety. And yet there's no plan for all of the cars that are jeopardizing student safety. And it's not just student safety, it's car safety. I don't understand. There has to be a plan. There has to be a plan on how traffic is going to move around Downers Grove North. And I think before pavement gets laid and things get too far in the process, it's going to be too late. We can go back and say, well, we can put this in place, we can put that in place, but why can't we be a little more proactive and look ahead just a little bit? I want to know what that intersection is going to look like in 2 years. What is the plan for them? How are kids going to be picked up before and after school? How are kids going to be picked up before and after activities? How is traffic going to look after a major event at Downers Grove North? What is traffic going to look like on the weekends? What is that parking lot going to look like on the weekends? So I'm just asking you guys to ask the school district some more questions, to somehow try to get us involved in the process. Again, we feel like we're struggling to kind of find out when things are going through, when things are happening, when changes are being made. So I think the school board is trying to put some effort into trying to notify us, but still we need to know more. We need to have a plan.
Thank you. And again, we'll ourselves satisfy our own curiosity in terms of what the timetable is and what's to be expected, but primarily from our side, but also to the extent that it's knowable and appropriate from the school district's standpoint as well. And I know I may sound like a broken record when I say this, but I just know that in my time serving the village, and I know Commissioner Schnell can take it back even further, is that there have always been changes around the schools because traffic patterns change, lifestyle things change, activities change, many different policies change, and I have probably lost track of how many times that there have been requests to change or alter traffic patterns around both North and South High School. So part of me is, yes, I understand this is going to be a change of traffic flow, but I think the traffic flow has been dynamic around both those schools from the dawn of time to the present and will continue to be dynamic going forward. I don't think there will be any static environment no matter what we plan to do. So we can plan, and I agree with you, there ought to be a plan, because I think there's a cliche that goes along with that saying about you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But I also know from history that even when you expect a situation, circumstances change, and then you need to change accordingly. And gosh, I wouldn't even want to hazard to guess how many times the Parking and Traffic Commission has had requests to alter parking patterns, traffic flow around both of the high schools over the last 20 years. I know that doesn't come as any comfort to you. It's just an observation.
But we have to start somewhere. We put
don't disagree with you.
$14 million into a project, and we don't have a plan.
Don't. Understood. Thank you for your comments. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Tom Egan. I live at 4501 Saratoga Avenue, and I'm the last of our group to speak on the DGN improvement plan issue. Hopefully you are all in receipt of correspondence that I sent in through fax and asked Mr. Neustadt to distribute to all of you, so you saw basically what our concerns are in writing regarding the issues that we're talking about here tonight. And apparently you did receive it. Hopefully you had a chance to review it.
Did receive it, have not yet had a chance to review it, but
okay.
did receive it.
All right, good. The main issue, again, is that we feel the traffic study that was contracted for by the district is seriously flawed in several ways. And we did attend the Transportation and Parking Commission last week, and we were informed that we could file a neighborhood petition, which we did do, and they were in receipt of it as of Monday. And Mr. Farrer indicated to me in an email that he would schedule a neighborhood meeting with us as soon as it was quote-unquote feasible. Time is the tyrant in this whole scenario. Demolition is going to begin in 2 weeks of the houses that the district has purchased in that area between Prince and Grant and Saratoga. We expect shortly after that the infrastructure for the soccer field and the parking lots will begin to be put into place. If those permits are already issued, or if that infrastructure work goes in, then nothing will change. We've asked that in the neighborhood petition and the to the Transportation and Parking Commission that they review the entire situation regarding increased traffic flow, the change in pattern with the vacation of Prince. We're not asking at all that Prince vacation be undone. We understand the value in doing that on several different levels. We are just very concerned for traffic volume and safety, and we do feel that the traffic study contracted by the district, it was in such contrast to the village's own traffic study that I think it seriously underestimates the safety issues that are going to be impacting that intersection of Grant and Saratoga, especially with the egress of the planned proposed parking lot being less than 100 feet from that intersection. All that's detailed in the correspondence that you have, so I'm not going to reiterate all of that. What we're asking is that with the demolition only being 2 weeks away and not having, not likely being able, the Traffic and Parking Commission staff representative not likely being able to make a recommendation to the Village Council regarding that situation before that infrastructure gets put into place, because we're talking about a 2-week timeline. Don't know when that petition will be addressed, don't know how long it'll take for the reassessment of those issues that we're concerned with to be made and then presented to you. We're just kind of afraid it's all going to slip through the cracks. So we're respectfully requesting that go ahead with the demolition, let's get that started, but let's hold off on issuing the permits that will allow them to begin to redevelop that west side soccer field and parking lot until a reassessment of the traffic situation has been done by a staff representative. It's been through the Parking and Transportation Committee and presented back to the Village Council and to you, Mr. Mayor. I know that is putting a real block on the timeline that district has to see that their work gets done on their schedule and their timeline. But I think in the best interest of the overall community, that's what has to take place in order for us to try and prevent any unforeseen problems. And I heard what you said about things aren't static, they're dynamic, they're constantly changing. But just the disparity between what the district said the traffic is and what the village said the traffic is, and all of you passed the vacation of Prince based on the recommendations that there would be no impact on traffic, which was the conclusion of that traffic study. I think that's in serious error and needs to be revisited. So thank you for allowing me to make my comments.
Well, thank you, Mr. Egan. Appreciate your comments, and I will, as we all will, review your correspondence. And I think this just goes back to the question that was posed earlier, is in terms of what are the anticipated next steps and the timeline and whatnot, so at least we know what's coming up and so on and so forth. But thank you again for your comments. Any other questions or comments of a general nature from anyone in the audience? We have someone making her way down right now. Good evening.
My name is Patty Gruber, and I live at 6216 Pershing Avenue. And I'm here tonight to express my concern about the proposed building of a new Walgreens at 63rd and Woodward. I do not support this proposal because I believe it is not a logical place for retail stores such as Walgreens. I agree with the Planning Commission's vote of 7-1 to reject the proposal because Walgreens doesn't fit the village's future plan for this area or the criteria for low-intensity commercial buildings the future plan describes. The amount of traffic going in and out of such a business will increase traffic and congestion at an already dangerous intersection, the 6th most dangerous intersection in the area. Woodward going north is a 2-lane residential road, not equipped or zoned for this increase in traffic. Woodward already has issues with traffic and drivers who don't obey speed limit signs. This will only be compounded by having the Walgreens built at this location. The residents of Woodward are not the only ones that will suffer. As a resident of Pershing Avenue, located 1 block west of Woodward, I fear the same outcome for our street. I know how difficult it is to make a left-hand turn onto 63rd from Pershing. It will only be more difficult and dangerous to do so out of the proposed Walgreens because it will be closer to the intersection. I know the current Walgreens at Belmont and 63rd has similar issues with the left turn exit onto 63rd and the left turn exit onto Belmont, a 4-lane road. These left turns are dangerous and virtually impossible, so what do drivers do? They make a right-hand turn onto 63rd Street and then make a right on the next residential road. This will be exactly what will happen if this new Walgreens is built and Pershing is the road they will use. I fear it will be even worse for Pershing because we are the only side street between Woodward and Belmont. And people will take Pershing to avoid the light at Belmont and 63rd. We already had a child hit by a car a couple of years ago while riding their bike. The danger of this increased cut-through traffic will only be compounded by the numerous blind hills along Pershing, as well as the already marked dangerous intersection at 59th Street and Pershing. We also have stop signs and speed limit signs that drivers already ignore, so in my opinion, signage doesn't work. I noticed after driving by the Walgreens at Ogden and Main Street, the side street east of the building is a no outlet street. There is a 6-foot wooden fence north of the exit of the drive-through pharmacy, preventing traffic from the Walgreens to head north. Is this what the future holds for Woodward and/or Pershing? At the last council meeting on February 7th, a council member mentioned there should be no houses on 63rd Street because of the shopping center located on the south side of 63rd. If that is the case, then the same would be said for homes on Woodward going south because of the shopping center on 75th Street and Woodward, or the homes surrounding the Jewel on 63rd and Main for that matter, or the numerous other areas throughout the village where business and residents collide. That's a lot of houses that need to be destroyed. Also mentioned at the last meeting was the fact that this Walgreens proposal wasn't just created overnight, that there had been a lot of research and planning. Well, the same could be said about Walgreens' proposal to build at 63rd Street and Main Street a few years ago, which happened to be rejected by the Planning Commission and the Village Council. Walgreens came to Downers Grove and wanted to build at that location, but common sense was used to determine it wasn't the right place. So now Walgreens is asking, again, to build, this time at 63rd and Woodward. And if this is rejected, believe me, they will find another corner in the area. I'm asking the Village Council to use common sense as the Planning Commission did and reject this proposal. I'm asking that you would not be influenced by economic opportunities, especially when safety and lives are at stake. Please don't sell out the people of this area for some tax revenue. The people in this area are just as much incorporated residents as unincorporated residents. This concerns anyone who drives down 63rd Street or has ever used the intersection at 63rd and Woodward, as well as those that live in the area. In closing, I would just like to add that the concerns of unincorporated residents should not be ignored. We are patrons of Downers Grove businesses, retail stores, restaurants, and gas stations. We pay taxes on the products we purchase. We pay taxes for District 58 and District 99 schools. We attend churches, schools, community events, and social venues in the village. We have friends and family that live in the village, and we should be considered a big part of the village community. And our concerns should be taken seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gruber.
We started an online petition, just went up yesterday.
It's been forwarded to me a number of times today.
Oh, it was. Just because there are at the bottom of that reasons why people are signing. So a lot of people don't come to these meetings, they don't get up and speak, but there are people that are leaving their concerns at the bottom of this petition. So if you're aware of it, that's fine. If not, I have a copy of their comments.
We'll take it for the record. Appreciate you for bringing that. We are aware of it. Thank you for your comments. Just a couple things real quickly on that. Again, there's 4 pieces to that proposal, and not to get into the discussion tonight, but the annexation and the zoning issues are the first 2. And unlike a number of years ago with the proposal at 63rd, and Maine, we have a comprehensive plan that is the product of a lot of work. We didn't have one back then. I don't know how it would have turned out if we did have one back then. I don't know because I can't go back in time and change history, but we do have one this time. So it's not just common sense, but it's also the plan that reflects a lot of common sense from a lot of people collectively over a long period of time. And that's something that it would be irresponsible for us to ignore as well. But that goes to some of the other issues. Again, I think it comes down to really the special use, which is the last part of it. And there, I'll just reiterate, I don't think anyone's ignoring the concerns that have been expressed. I think actually they're weighing very heavily on everyone here in terms of their decision and in terms of any conditions that might be placed on the project should it go through. So no one's being ignored here, but thank you. Any other questions or comments of a general nature from anyone in the audience? Well, thank you for all the comments. We appreciate you coming down here tonight, and obviously we're listening very intently to what everyone has to say. So thank you for coming down on Valentine's Day of all nights and sharing your concerns with us. We appreciate your passion in that respect. That brings us to item 5 on our agenda, public hearings. We have no public hearing tonight, so that brings us to item number 6, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on the consent agenda? Any questions or comments from any members of the council with respect to the consent agenda? I just had one request with respect to item 6B, the project with respect to updating the village's bicycle and pedestrian plan. I know the work hasn't been done yet and it will be done, but when it is done, could we please make sure that we reach out to the Downers Grove Bicycle Club and just let them know what's going on, because I am reminded of a meeting in the past where they expressed interest in being involved, or at least being informed as to what was happening because of their passion for cycling in the village, and I think it would be a valuable resource to at least reach out to and include in that process.
Will do.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The consent agenda passes unanimously. Brings us to item 7 on the agenda, which is our active agenda. These are items that we are voting on this evening, and we have 2 items on our active agenda. First is, do I have a motion to approve an ordinance with respect to regulating non-conforming signs?
Mayor Tully, I move to adopt an ordinance regulating non-conforming signs as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments with respect, any questions or comments from any members of the council with respect to this item? Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. I spoke extensively last week about this.
No pun intended, right?
That's right. Sign ordinance went into effect even before I joined council, and while I was never really a big fan of it, since it was so enacted by the council, I felt it was my duty to ensure that we move forward and make changes. I made my views known regarding the upcoming deadline for a couple of years now. We've waited almost until the deadline to come up with a semblance of a plan. Last week I mentioned the OASIS program and its provisions, and there was a lot of discussion about that. But I wasn't the first one to bring it up. As a matter of fact, it was brought up by staff back in, if you go back and listen or watch the December 13th council meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the OASIS program, and at that time we were told we were going to get a report about its 66% compliance. We were told we'll get additional OASIS information, that there was an upcoming meeting of the OASIS board. So I really think we should have been talking about the OASIS plan or program before we start talking about extensions to the sign ordinance. While we're talking about extending due to economic downturn, we have to keep in mind that during this time period there was also an economic upturn, an actual boom before that time, and that didn't seem to improve compliance. We got to 66% without real enforcement, without putting a lot of pressure on businesses complying with the ordinance. We're just kind of letting things take its natural course. The OASIS Well, I had planned on not voting in favor of the extension unless we fix the OASIS program and ensured that we wouldn't be having taxpayer money fund signage. And I was hoping that the OASIS board would meet and come up with a reasonable plan. They did meet, and they have decided that TIF dollars, or the OASIS plan, should continue to pay for signage. Even if we extend it, that we will continue to use tax dollars for signage. And I definitely had a problem with that. Number one, businesses had 7 years to comply. Now that I just find it unfair to use tax dollars to fund for those that just couldn't comply within the 7-year period, plus the fact that taxpayer dollars for sign ordinance, you know, if you're, and not to pick on a particular business, so if you take a widget business on Ogden Avenue where most of the non-compliance is, and you have an OASIS program, taxpayer dollars are going to pay for that sign. You may have a widget competitor in your downtown or somewhere else in Downers Grove that doesn't have access to the same taxpayer dollars for that signage. And so that's basically, I think, unfair, and I hate to see that happen. So I could not vote in favor of an extension at this time until we fix the OASIS problem. And after I got the report, let's see, it was after 4 o'clock, I think it was, when we got the answers, and I found out that the OASIS board has decided that with the extension that we should even continue paying for signs and signs only requests. I thought maybe since we're reluctant to do enforcement, since we've had such great success, 66% with minimal effort, and we expect to do 85% in a couple of years with also minimal effort, why don't we save, and we are really reluctant to take businesses to court to enforce compliance. You know, we want voluntary compliance, not forcing people into compliance. Maybe what we ought to do is what we did to our downtown, and maybe consider possibly, if it takes a repeal of the sign ordinance, and changing it over to a pattern book, like we did for our downtown, and make strong recommendations for the signage. And maybe in that we'll get the same 85%. We won't have a plan. It'll save time. It'll save resources, and we won't be using taxpayer money to fund signage. So I don't know if that intrigues anybody. It's a new idea that just struck me late this afternoon after I saw the OASIS group report. If that's interesting, fine. If not, my intent is not to go with an extension until we fix the OASIS program. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there questions or comments from any members of the council? For my own part, I understand Commissioner Waldak's comments with respect to the OASIS program and what the appropriate use of funds would be in terms of sign-only projects as that is perceived to be defined. But I don't see it as something that is so intrinsically linked with the extension of the sign ordinance compliance deadline that the two cannot proceed on separate paths. I, for one, think we've probably heard from all of us at prior meetings, are in favor of hearing from staff with respect to what are the appropriate parameters for the OASIS program and whether those funds should be used for signs only under any circumstances. And I understand that will be coming to us in the near future for discussion. And in the meantime, there won't be any decisions made or funds awarded with respect to any so-called sign-only OASIS requests for grants. So given that it's happening, I don't see any reason to delay the extension because I think there are compelling reasons in favor of it. The proposal that you made, Commissioner, quite frankly, I have no reaction to as I sit here. I would have to soak that in and think about it. So you'll excuse me if I don't respond as I sit here right now. So I'll just focus on the two issues before us. Actually, the one issue before us is the extension of the sign ordinance deadline, which, as I think I've said before on multiple occasions, has very compelling reasons and justification behind it. So if there's nothing else on that one, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, the matter passes 5-1. Next, that brings us to 7B on our active agenda. Do I have a motion to authorize a third extension of a final plan development amendment for planned development number 31?
Mayor Tully, I motion to adopt an ordinance authorizing a third extension of a final plan development amendment for plan development number 31 for construction of a two-story office building at 3300 Wood Creek Drive as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from any members of the council with respect to this item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, the matter passes unanimously. That brings us to the end of our active agenda, and now brings us to item 8 on our agenda for this evening, which is our first reading or our workshop session of our meeting, where we will be considering 3 items that will be presented to us for discussion and consideration only, and will be voted on at some future date. As is customary, we'll turn the meeting over to Village Manager Dave Fieldman. Mr. Fieldman.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. The first item on tonight's first reading agenda is consideration of an ordinance that would establish turn restrictions at the corner of Main and Maple that were previously mentioned by the mayor this evening. Here to present background information on this item is our Public Works Director, Nan Newland.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As Dave said, this is an ordinance that was prepared to amend sections of the municipal code concerning turn restrictions at the intersection of Main and Maple. And this action was a recommendation of the neighborhood traffic study that was conducted in 2010. The goal of this recommendation is to reduce congestion at the intersection during morning and evening peak hours, which, as well as to minimize the tendency of motorists to use neighborhood streets when congestion is occurring at that location. Just to give you some background, at the time the study was done, we did extensive traffic counting at intersections and streets, including this intersection, and we found that for traffic going north in the morning at this intersection, we had almost the same number of people that wanted to turn right as they did wanting to go straight. We had over 300 cars wanting to go right at Main and Maple to proceed east on Maple, most of them going to the parking garage and further north on Washington, as we did people that wanted to proceed north on Main. We had a very small number by comparison, about 10 motorists in the peak hour morning that wanted to turn left, to just give you a perspective of the traffic at this northbound here. What we did to begin to facilitate this was that under the village manager's authorization, we enacted a temporary change to the traffic control, and we installed a no left turn sign at the intersection. The downside of the no left turn sign is it basically is in effect at all hours of the day. And what we found was that in addressing the peak hour problem, we were creating non-peak concerns for motorists, inconvenience for them that wanted to turn left to go to places like the churches and the businesses after hours and on weekends. So what we did was we purchased and installed a lighted sign. It will only illuminate during the morning and evening peak times and restrict left turn only during those times, and all other times of the day and weekend, motorists will be free to turn left there. This item was presented to the Transportation and Parking Commission in January, and they voted unanimously to approve the changes, and we will continue to monitor the operation and performance of the intersection and to make any modifications to signage or striping that may be needed to make this perfectly clear to motorists. And we recommend approval of this item. I'd be happy to answer any questions you'd have.
Thank you, Ms. Newland. Are there any questions from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from any members of the council? Commissioner Neustadt.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question that occurred to me. If someone does make a left turn when that sign is illuminated, what kind of moving violation would that be?
Right turn.
I don't know exactly what the...
Right turn.
It's as designated in the
How's it a
ordinance.
left turn if you're going north?
It would be this section of Kansas City side left turn.
Okay. Thank you.
That's what the sign says.
Well, I thought you couldn't make a right turn.
Other questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Schnell?
I actually have a question, and Commissioner Durkin thought it was the right turn, but anyway, that's what we were talking about, it's a left turn. One of the concerns that we had was the church. We have contacted the church so that they know what the new process will be, and that if there are any other problems, they have a contact person within the village who they could talk to? Okay.
Yes.
I think that's really important, so, thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was thinking about when you guys made the change for the right turn. When the weather gets nicer out, are we going to restripe that street and really make it a white path with the arrow on the ground?
We will. What we did, we put in paint temporarily, but we will make that in thermoplastic and make that more clear.
When the weather changes? Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you. I believe this is like the third try on this intersection, if I recall, at least 3. And I certainly hope we get it right this time. We're improving it as time goes on. I think it's a good idea. I support it. If there's an event in the downtown area and we want to move traffic to the left direction, we'll be able to illuminate that sign in the non-peak hours as well.
Yes, that's just done through a change in the controlling cabinet, which we have access to do and make overrides to the automatic setting that it has.
We have the technology.
Even better. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from any members of the council? Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is an ordinance authorizing membership in the Northern Illinois Police Alarm System Organization, also known as NIPUS. This membership would allow the village to participate in a multi-jurisdictional public safety effort. Chief Porter is here to answer any questions you may have, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from any members of the council? Thank you. Next item.
And since Nan did such a great job on the first item, I'll call her back to the podium to explain the award of a contract in the amount of $192,034.18 to ERA of Warrenville for resident engineering services related to the Nottingham Subdivision Road and Water Main Reconstruction Project. Nan.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you. This contract is for resident engineering services for the Nottingham project, the scope of which includes the reconstruction of streets, the replacement of the water main, installation of traffic calming measures, and some drainage improvements throughout this neighborhood. The resident engineering will provide construction observation, documentation, oversight. It will ensure that the project is constructed according to the design specifications and contracts, and will coordinate the construction phasing, which will be very critical for this project to minimize negative impacts to residents in the neighborhood. They will also interact with residents to address their concerns on a daily basis. The village posted a request for statement of qualifications in December, and 6 of the most qualified firms were interviewed. 4 were determined to be the most qualified and were asked to submit proposals, cost proposals for the work. Based on this information, staff recommended award of the contract to ERA based on their approach to the work, their scope of work, and their experience of their specific staff that will be assigned to this project. They have satisfactorily completed similar projects for the village and for other municipalities, very similar projects to this one, including the villages of Lombard, Berkeley, and Lisle. And we do recommend award of this contract, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Nan. Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from any members of the village council? Commissioner Newstead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, I just did a quick search, and it looks like there's 1,670 man-hours that will be spent by this firm to help us basically with a lot of the communication, coordination, as Nan told us already, but I think it's important to note that amount of hours because that is, I don't know what that equivalates to a full-time person, but it's a lot more, I think, than a full-time equivalent. And they have experience with this kind of construction phasing. One of the questions I had for staff was because of this area, it's close to Darien, there's water service connections across municipal lines, and that's going to take a lot of coordination and communication, and this firm has done projects like this before, so I think that's a benefit in this particular case. So I'll be in support of this next week. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you. This is one of those items that I see on the agenda, and you look at it, and it's the type of thing that we see quite a bit, resident engineering services, and you kind of, and then every now and then you see it on a Friday or over the weekend, and you start to question. I'm sorry. It wasn't a slam dunk this time around for me. I think what kind of caught my eye is we budgeted $200,000 for resident engineering services, and I suppose we should be happy that it's coming in at a max of $192,000. Miracle of miracles, it's almost exact. And that kind of raised a flag. And then it's an awful lot of money. We have a village manager, deputy village manager, public works director, who has a lot of engineers, and we're paying a resident engineer more than we pay the highest paid employee an annual salary. It's a lot more than our highest paid employee. And that kind of raised a flag with me. Commissioner brought up, actually a full-time employee, I guess budget-wise, I think it comes out to about 2,080 hours for a full-time employee. If you consider that full-time employee is off about 4 weeks, you're talking about 1,900 hours. And we're talking about this employee being 1,670 hours. And I don't know, it just seems to me, that's 6 weeks less than I think a regular full-time employee would be working. And it's an awful lot of money. And so, like I say, usually I look at this and it's a slam dunk, but I just kind of had to question the routine that we tend to get into. Why couldn't we hire a qualified contract employee, let's say without benefits, to put in the 1,670 hours and provide that at a considerably lesser rate? And that's what I'm struggling with right now. It just seems that it would cost less to get a contract employee. I mean, I come from a company where we would lay off people and then hire them back to do various projects, exactly like this type of thing, engineering and various specialized services. Instead of getting a firm that that's going to cost more than our highest paid employee gets paid in a year, it just doesn't seem to jive with me. And staff has replied that it would cost more to go out and get an employee. I don't know, have we ever looked at those numbers? Do we really know how much trouble it would be to go out and get a contract or temporary employee for almost a full year without benefits, et cetera, and save, some sort of, at least part of the $192,000? And it's just something I struggle with, and maybe if staff could get me some, rather than saying it's going to cost more to go out and get a contract employee, maybe if I had some numbers in front of me instead of a sentence that says it's just going to cost more, it's too much trouble, or,
We'll get
convince me.
We'll get you information, really, that backs sort of the value proposition behind that $192,000 and the trade-offs and costs of other options.
And that would be appreciated, not just for this project, but in future projects where we keep doing the same thing. I think every now and then, we got to ask the questions. Thank you.
I think we probably ask the questions more now than then, probably 90% of the cases. But thank you. Any other questions or comments from any members of the council with respect to this item? Hearing none. Thank you. That brings us to the end of our first reading / workshop agenda. And that brings us to item 9 on our agenda for this evening, which is the mayor's report. And I do have 3 things under the mayor's report tonight. The first one is the weekly, or every meeting there's an update with respect to where we stand in our efforts to continue to press Commonwealth Edison for enhanced electricity service in our community. This is an effort that, of course, began last summer after the lengthy outages that were caused by severe weather, but really brought to the surface some more chronic problems that have been around for a long time affecting our community. The update from last week is as follows. ComEd has notified the village that it will complete its targeted tree trimming efforts in Downers Grove by the end of the month of February. There are 2 equipment upgrades that have been promised by ComEd that our staff here in the village are currently tracking to ensure completion by the promised deadline of June of 2012. The first equipment upgrade is the installation of reinforced overhead cable in the area near 55th and Maple, which ComEd assures us will be less susceptible to storm damage in the future. The second promised equipment upgrade is the installation of a similar reinforced cable in the far northern part of the village near 35th Street and Highland Avenue. Again, something that should be less susceptible to storm damage in the future and therefore less likely to cause outages. Hopefully we'll see that coming very soon, and that will be the actual outcome. In addition, ComEd is adding further equipment in terms of a project upgrade in Downers Grove along the following lines. There is going to be the replacement of 4,400 feet of underground cable in the circuit serving the area near 63rd Street and Main Street. This project is part of the infrastructure upgrades provided under the Smart Grid bill, and this is also planned to take place during the second part of 2012. The next item that I wanted to report out on is the status of another very important development that's going on right now, which is the new draft DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance. I just want to make everyone aware, they can look it up themselves, but on the DuPage County Stormwater Committee website, which can be found under the Stormwater Update segment of the county website, which is dupageco.org. There is a description of the upcoming changes to the draft ordinance that will be presented to the DuPage County Stormwater Committee at the next meeting in March, with the aim towards resolving these items. There's a couple of policy issues that have to be made based on direction that was given to county staff at the last meeting, with the idea towards getting this finalized so we have the ordinance can be approved by the DuPage County Board and hopefully put into effect on the current timetable of April of this year. I won't go into reading all the details, but wanted to make everyone aware of it. That update was just posted to the county website today. The third item that I'd like to share with everyone under the Mayor's report is actually a presentation that Commissioner Marilyn Schnell and I will try to keep as brief as possible with respect to our recent visit to the National League of Cities Congress of Cities that was held in November in Phoenix, Arizona. For those who may not be familiar with the National League of Cities, it was founded in 1976 and has been around for some time. The National League of Cities, or the NLC, is an organization that is dedicated to helping city leaders build better communities, working in partnership with 49 state municipal leagues and more than 19,000 cities, villages, and towns. It is every year, among other things, and by no means this is not the only thing that it does, but it holds an annual Congress of Cities and Exposition where representatives from municipalities all across the country gather to share information, input, ideas on matters of common interest, reflecting our diverse experiences across the country and our own communities. It always strikes me as amazing how we all have the same problems, but go about dealing with them in very different ways depending on where you are in the United States. The other thing that is featured as part of the conference is the exposition, where, as you might think of at any industry trade show, the participants and visitors can see the latest and greatest in tools, technology, and problem-solving approaches that we can then potentially bring back to our own communities and put into place. Let me see where I'm at here. We're going to kind of do this somewhat informally. Commissioner Schnell and I are going to sort of go back and forth, because what we did is there were a number of different tracks that took place during the conference, and we tried to split it up as much as possible and attend as much of the conference as we could. So we actually hardly saw each other because one of us was on one track and the other one was on the other track, so we could bring back and share as much information about the conference as possible and also share some ideas. Just to give you an idea of what the purpose of the conference is, as mentioned, it's to learn, interact, and explore. There are keynote speakers that speak on issues of great importance to municipalities. There are a whole slew of workshops that you can sign up for, and what I mentioned a moment ago about tracks, you'll see in a moment what those tracks were, where depending on whether you're interested in infrastructure, economic development, green technology, you can follow a whole series of tracks over the course of multiple days and learning from experts and other representatives from municipalities about those topics, so that you as an elected official can be better informed on these topics and in many cases bring back fresh ideas to your own community, network and exchange with others. It's not just all sitting in a conference room. There are usually a number of mobile workshops, and Commissioner Schnell had the ability to go to a number of those, where they'll actually take you out into the field to see some of the developments that have taken place in the host city, where whether it's solar energy or something else, you can see how they've actually implemented these ideas, taken them from the workshop into the field. One of the most valuable things, whether you're on the bus to and from things or in the conference rooms or going to the various events that are hosted, are the networking opportunities, the ability to share ideas with colleagues across the country. Again, we have common problems but different experiences. I've always found that to be extraordinarily valuable. And then, of course, I mentioned the exhibition hall, where there are lots of things to look at, which may or may not be applicable to your particular community. I mentioned that the tracks. This year there were 4, and the structure of the conference has changed over time. They've actually shortened the conference. It used to be longer in years past, and primarily because of economic concerns, they made the conference shorter this year and more compact. The tracks that were available were, as I mentioned, economic development, self-explanatory there. Green cities, which had to do with sustainable energy, environmentally friendly things that cities can do within their own communities. Infrastructure, which is always a challenge for municipalities regardless of where you are. And then there was also a focus on various social issues under the heading of Your City's Families. I'll stop here and turn it over to Commissioner Schnell, because one of the things that she took responsibility for was attending some of the mobile workshops and was able to take in a few of them. And there's actually a picture of downtown Phoenix right there from the vantage point of the convention center. That's not one of the mobile workshops, it's just there more for aesthetics. But I'll let Commissioner Schnell speak briefly about her experience with the mobile workshops.
I actually attended 3 mobile, I attended 3 mobile workshops. The first one was on the town of Gilbert, which is a community about a 25-minute bus ride from downtown Phoenix. They are very proud of the fact that they entered into an agreement with 4 other entities, a public-private partnership with SPG Solar, Integris, Arizona Public Service, and the town of Gilbert itself to put in a 20-year power purchase agreement whereby they constructed a 2-megawatt solar project above their groundwater treatment plant. It has approximately 8,000 tracker solar panels that are mounted on beams and 5 inverters that convert the solar energy to electricity. The solar panels generate enough power to offset approximately 44% of the treatment power plant's requirements. It was very interesting. In fact, it was probably the most popular workshop that they had. They had 2 bus loads, totally packed. Never wear heels to a solar plant, because if you do, your feet really hurt a lot. Because we walked this entire project and it was all gravel. But it was very interesting to see. I've never been in a solar installation quite this large. These solar panels, everybody kind of has an idea of what solar panels look like, but these actually track with the sun so that they get full maximum potential. In addition, we learned about how you have to clean them, how often you have to clean them. They had demonstrations of, because they track how much in cloudy days versus sunny days, how much power they can generate. So there was a lot of information. The vice mayor of the city of Gilbert talked at length about the negotiations that took place between the 4 entities and the fact that it was a $10 million project which cost the town of Gilbert nothing. So I think what I took away from it, one, is that trying to do things with other entities for the benefit of the community at no cost is probably one of the best things that could ever happen. We try to do a lot of that in our community with intergovernmental agreements and trying to work with other entities, but this was a great example of trying to cover your electric costs at no cost to the community itself. The other workshop that I went to, that again, and I have pictures, but they came out about 1 inch square, so it wasn't worth putting them up there, was called Tempe Can Really Move You. And what it is a smart rail program that was put in because in 1996 they imposed a sales tax, but they wanted to be able to move people within the community and between Tempe and the city of Phoenix. So they have a light rail system that they put in, and they built a transportation center, which is probably one of the most innovative things I think I've ever seen in my life. It's a solar building with a green roof, which attracted all sorts of interest from everyone just finding out how plants actually live on a green roof. But besides that, the main level of the transportation center has a bike shop in it, where people can bring their bikes, have them serviced while they go off to do their business during the day. They have showers there. They have the ability to store bikes there so they're safely stored. It just is truly a great way to bring economic development into a multi-use building. It's a 3-story building. The top floor is used for office retail or office lease, plus the transportation center, which we visited, has their offices there. And we got to see on a huge screen, a lot larger than this, similar to our VOC, how traffic can be controlled through the operations center. In addition, the Smart Rail itself, because it is a university town, allows students to go between the town itself and the city of Phoenix to either shop or to attend classes there. It was an opportunity, I guess, to see how buses, trolleys, the Smart Rail system can really enhance the value to a community. So it has been totally, the residents of the community has totally embraced this, and they feel it's a great product. Again, this was very well attended. In fact, all the mobile workshops, by the time we actually got to the conference, were totally sold out. The last one I attended was on Saturday at the conference, and it was about Phoenix's farmers markets. And much like our farmers markets, they sell produce. But I think what is somewhat different from ours is the fact that they encourage small businesses of a diverse nature, of diverse ownership nature, to actually come and be part of the farmers markets, so that you could have somebody who was making tacos or different kinds of food at the farmers market. You could also have someone who had a small shop in their home being able to sell their wares. They actually have these every day of the week throughout the city of Phoenix. Very well attended. The attendance has grown over the years, and it's a great way, again, to introduce economic development opportunities for very small businesses that may not have the opportunity to showcase themselves. So we went to, I think, 2 or 3 of these, and each one had a different kind of structure to it, but yet all of them were encouraging small businesses to show their wares and obviously to try to sell things. So it was a very productive 3 workshops, and just, I guess, from a personal point of view, one of the best things about the mobile workshops is you're on a bus or on a train for a period of time, and you're sitting next to someone you really don't know very well. So you get to know them really well after about 25 minutes, and you get to, talk about communities, share problems, share solutions, and it's a really great way to get to know about people and get to know about communities, not only the one at the mobile workshop, but the ones with the people that are next to you. So it was a great opportunity.
Not to interrupt, I know Commissioner Durkin actually had a question too, but something you just said just struck me. I was at a meeting recently of the Leeds organization of Downers Grove executives, and one of the questions that was asked at the end of the meeting of me and of the village was, what can the village do? Because I was talking about Oasis and other programs that we have, and one of the questions was, well, what, if anything, can the village do to assist small businesses that would like to expand or get some kind of a leg up? And obviously, in terms of grant money, the answer was, well, times are tough, there's nothing like that. But that's a potential idea, at least incorporating them into something like that. I don't know if it would work or not, but I would like to have had that answer last week.
I think we've done some of it, in that we have some of the businesses from our downtown show at the farmers market. But these are more cottage industries that are just people who are starting up, and to try to be able to maybe showcase them at the farmers market and would, I think, be a great way to help our smaller business perhaps thrive.
Do you have a question, Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, just real quick, not to put you on the spot, Commissioner Schnell, but the Phoenix Farmers Market, that's a year-long event, right?
Correct.
Did you notice, did they do anything different because of the heats that they have?
It wasn't real hot in November.
Well, no, I understand, but in the summertime, it's unbearable, but there's their winter, just, vice versa. But did you notice, do they do anything different, change hours?
No, they didn't, but they do have it, as I said, they have it a different spot within the community 6 days a week.
6 days a week. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, well, Phoenix is a fairly large city, but the whole thing was tented so that, it was shaded from the, they had water available. They had the things that you have to have in a warm community, obviously, for people to survive. But other than that, it just was a great way to stroll and talk to people and ask them what they did and how they did things. And I mean, obviously, some of the businesses you probably would never go back to, but it was interesting to just talk to some of the food vendors. I don't mean people selling corn, but people selling food that they've produced in a cottage industry. Just finding out what they were doing, how they were doing it. How they've integrated this into other things within the community, how they make contacts at things like this. So it was very interesting.
That's great. Well, I think we have our own Downers Market coming up pretty soon with the Y, right? So there you go, maybe. Very soon, give us some ideas.
Well, let's move over to the exhibition hall, because obviously we all know what an exhibition hall is like at any kind of convention like this. There are tons and tons of different things to look at. Some of the things that we stopped and took note of were some pretty neat emergency preparedness programs I'll let Commissioner Schnell mention. There's always an abundance of different tools and approaches that are available on Commissioner Durkin's favorite topic of traffic calming. And I'm reminded of when Commissioner Durkin was at the National League of Cities Congress and Exposition. It was held in Reno, Nevada a number of years ago. Had brought back a lot of information about traffic calming that we've actually incorporated into the village since then. There's still, you'll be glad to know that's still alive and well on the exhibition floor. And just for you, Mr. Falish, I made sure I stopped at the guy who was selling the solar-powered streetlights.
Yeah, we did.
And so there's a photo on the right there of a gentleman that has various types of solar-powered streetlights, and I asked him for information so we could do some comparisons.
And we actually brought up his concerns.
Yes, we actually brought up your concerns with another company while we were there. So just there was an exchange of ideas. Some of the other things that are real hot right now are cloud technology. That's a big topic about municipalities trying to save money by moving their operations, their communications into the cloud. I could spend a whole hour talking about cloud technology, so I won't. Needless to say, it is a challenge for some communities. Some may have read that the city of Los Angeles was going to save millions and millions of dollars by moving all of their message-based communications into a Google platform, form of cloud computing, and that hasn't worked out so well. They've actually found out that 13,000 of their police officers could not move their communications into the cloud because they couldn't reach agreement in terms of the security and confidentiality and privacy. So that's a little bit more of a challenge than one thinks. But being aware of those opportunities and what some of the challenges are, I think is very important, because cloud technology it's an inevitable path for all of us, not just municipalities, but one needs to proceed carefully. So that was an important thing. I remember that at the National League of Cities Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, about 10 years ago, there were a series of presentations on stormwater utilities, which were much newer then than they are today. And here again, we are discussing quite seriously the possibility of a stormwater utility in Downers Grove. And that was an idea that also came back from information that was obtained at National League of Cities, which that year was held in Atlanta. And by the way, if it's not obvious at this point, they host it in a different city every year. Let's see, let's move on here. I don't know if you want to say anything about emergency preparedness.
I'm actually trying to find it. Yes, I will quickly say it. We actually came back with a really big book that we gave to the village manager to pass along to staff. The emergency preparedness individuals that we talked to was a think tank in Baltimore who actually did their presentation or did the presentation in the book because it would dictate from Congress about preparedness when and if a nuclear attack might hit some of the largest cities in the country. And it describes what cities should do, cities large and small should do to prepare their residents for possible attacks like that. There are many things, however, from something like that you can take back to a community that is not nuclear, I guess, in nature. So that's one of the reasons why we pass the information on to the village manager. I think it was very informational, very informative, and the individuals involved spent a lot of time talking to municipalities of every size, trying to explain what their think tank was doing. Just one comment on cloud technology, since we're kind of doing this anyway. Google did have 3 workshops within the exhibition hall itself to educate people on what cloud technology was, how it could help streamline things. They had one actually on police use of cloud technology. So they really tried to educate people as much as possible on what was coming. Google also had a booth that had cloud technology in it that we stopped at. So combination of, in the exhibition hall, not only booths, but also of educational half-hour, 45-minute talks during your lunch hour to kind of give you some information that you may not ordinarily get.
Just some notes that I took on the tracks that I attended, which mostly focused on infrastructure and some economic development, because depending on what the topic was, I would try to pick the ones that looked like they were of most interest to Downers Grove, and Commissioner Schnell did likewise with other tracks, and we split them up in advance. Just a few things that I put down. There was obviously a lot. I just chose these 4 or 5 in the interest of time. One was a very interesting conversation about being careful about applying national or state standards to road infrastructure in your community. One might think, well, of course, if it's a national or state standard, that's what we ought to do. But there was a presentation by some municipal representatives about, that's not necessarily true. What might work well in Oklahoma City may not work well in Downers Grove and may not work well in Boston. It's more important to tailor your infrastructure and your streets so as to add local value, which seems like an obvious proposition, but in the world of engineering, no offense to my colleague down at the end, sometimes national standards tend to drive the bus when one needs to think more locally, and so that was actually a very interesting conversation that's hard to summarize in a couple minutes. There was a great presentation on the use of private activity bonds, or what we call industrial revenue bonds here, that allows for public debt financing of private developments on a tax-exempt basis. Now, this is something we certainly have done here in Downers Grove, but this was a presentation on how you can really do that more aggressively and promote it more within your community to really spur economic development. And that was obviously a very popular topic because no one has any money these days, so anyone that can use someone else's money to spur economic development is a very popular topic. One other thing I wanted to point out is both Commissioner Schnell and I saw, bless you, a very interesting presentation of a very cool app with respect to economic development. And I've shared this with Michael Casa in the past. And we don't have time to do it now, but I would encourage everyone to visit this website, www.OK, C as in Charlie, E as in Edward, D as in David, I as in information, S as in Sam.com. This is the Greater Oklahoma City economic development site, and they have a web-based property locator, which essentially what it lets you do, and if we had time we could go through it, but I understand it's Valentine's Day, so I'll be merciful for my colleagues. But it's not just information about what's available in your community in terms of economic development possibilities and sites that someone might want to come to, but it allows basically somebody who has never been to your town to plug in it's almost like a Match.com, or speaking of Valentine's Day, or eHarmony or something like that, where a retailer or someone who's looking to build a commercial development or whatever it might be can plug in their criteria into the site, and basically then it turns around and generates, well, here's what we have for you in our community. It's a very dynamic, interactive site that both harnesses technology but then also keeps the personal touch, which was the theme of the presentation, is that for economic development in the 21st century, you need to lead with technology but follow with the personal touch, because people want to be able to get information about you without having to make a phone call or pick up a binder or a brochure, but then in order to really make it happen, that's when you need to follow up with individuals. And I think that that intersection between good people and cutting-edge technology can be very important. But it was a pretty neat device, a pretty neat demonstration on the website, and I would encourage you to just take a look at it because I think it's something that would be pretty neat and pretty leading edge when it comes to economic development. I know Mr. Cass is going to tell me we've already done this, but the other thing that's really cool about it is it was also in an app form, so you could put it on your Droid or your iPhone and basically do the same thing. And the demonstration that was given is somebody could be driving past your community and see a sign, oh, Downers Grove, and they could plug in, well, I'd like to do a big box with the following parameters, and boom, there would be a site that would tell them whether or not that was a good fit for their community or not. And I know that we've got lots of neat stuff going on, but I just wanted to share that. And Mr. Cassidy, you look like you're about bursting once again to say something.
Just to show that I do listen, tomorrow we have a company at 1 o'clock coming to our office on that very topic.
Fantastic. So here we go.
So it's actually an app then?
It's both.
Discover Downers
It's
Grove
both.
app.
The richer experience, I would encourage you to go to the website because it's more
That was
internet-based.
okcdis.com.
www.okcedis.com. And if you just go to Oklahoma City, you go to the website, you'll see something called Property Locator, and click on it. It's a pretty, I mean, for a municipality, it's really out there. Pretty neat. And the fact that it also comes in an app format, I thought was really cool in terms of economic development tools. And so here's another idea that not only has come back from this, but looks like we're exploring it here in Downers Grove. And again, I have no idea what this costs, so let's take it easy.
Well, actually, it's within our budget. We, the nation's leader in developing that type of site database technology, is going to come talk to our staff tomorrow at 1 o'clock regarding how this can be used in many ways, including mapping, GIS, aerial photography, all the different types of features that a prospective business might be interested in, and then also how to deliver that to them, whether it's through an app, whether it's information that is provided to them on a website or in several different forms.
And of course, the purpose behind this is you want to make it easy for people to find you and come invest in your community, and this is a tool that allows that to happen. So enough on that, I'll let folks explore it on their own. A couple of other things real quickly is, not that I think we're about to do this at any point in time, but I was surprised at the presentation on how many communities are actually developing their own broadband and wireless internet service to improve their own communities, enhance services, and reduce costs. So that they don't simply want to rely upon outside third parties to support their wireless internet infrastructure. They're doing it themselves. Now, they're doing it in partnership with some private entities as well. But I thought that was a pretty neat idea. Not that, like I said, we're going to do that anytime soon. I'm sure there are some people who would love for us to do that, to have a village-wide free Wi-Fi that was supported by our own infrastructure. But just an interesting idea. One other thing just to keep an eye on is apparently there is a movement afoot to change how gasoline tax is calculated because of the problem of the fluctuations in price. And instead of charging a tax on the amount of gasoline that someone purchases, instead charging a tax, and this actually exists in some places, believe it or not, on the amount of miles traveled. So where one would check into a gas station and there would be a reading taken of your odometer, and then it would be checked again at another point in time, and based on how many miles you had driven, you would be taxed on that, not on the quantity of gas or the price of gas. That clearly was a controversial topic in the room in which it was discussed, but I just thought that that was something very interesting because I had not heard of that concept before. But apparently it exists in some parts of the country as municipalities struggle for different revenue sources.
Really?
Take it easy. That's not anything we're talking about doing. I just wanted to share with everybody. I thought it was something interesting that I had never heard of before. Sure, go ahead.
Two quick things that I just want to cover, mainly because of things that we've discussed up here. One, I went to a talk about social media and the new face of local government because we've obviously talked about that here. I won't give you a synopsis of it, but there is a great article. Actually, it's the gentleman who gave the talk. It's his presentation, and it's called Using Online Tools to Engage the Public. I did send a copy. It's like 44 pages. I sent a copy to the village manager, and he'll email the council with a copy of it, just so you might want to look at it. It really is just a phenomenal thing. It shows the importance of websites, a really good website. That's where businesses go to take a first look, and then it talks about Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all those wonderful things and the values too, as far as economic development goes. So it's something that I think when the manager sends you, if you have a chance to just kind of scroll through it and look at it, because I think there's a lot of value to it. There was a lot of value to me. And then in line with Commissioner Newstead, I know has really been into green power and windmills and things. They didn't talk a lot about windmills. But because of your interest, I did get information from 8 different green workshops which, part of which are smart grid and other things, but different kinds of technology. I have given them to the manager, and I'm sure he'll pass them along so that everybody can take a look at some of that information. So even though I did economic development and the mayor did infrastructure, we did get information on the green solar issues, because I know there was an interest up here on the part of the council. Okay.
And then last, this wasn't actually part of the conference, but as long as we were going to Phoenix for where the conference was being held, we spoke in advance with Dr. Geppinger at Midwestern University here in Downers Grove. As many of you probably know, Midwestern University has 2 campuses. One is here in Downers Grove, and the other one is in Glendale, Arizona, which is outside of Phoenix. And we had made arrangements in advance to visit and tour their campus in Glendale, Arizona, primarily, well, 2 reasons. One, we wanted to see the rest of the campus and how it looks there. But secondly, because the dental clinic that Midwestern University is currently constructing in the northwest part of our town right now, the 200,000 square foot dental clinic, I believe it's 5 stories, they already have that facility down there in Glendale. And so it was an opportunity to see what will be here in action there. And I got to tell you, it is a very impressive facility. And the type of low-cost dental care that they do as part of their dental clinic, where they're teaching the dentists, or in training, if you will, is a great asset to that community. And the fact that we're going to have that here in Downers Grove is just phenomenal. And I think we had some appreciation for that when it was being presented to us, but to actually see it and tour it and see what they're doing there and how that's impacting their community is quite remarkable. And I'm just thrilled that we're going to have that here in Downers Grove. So that was a real treat. And I want to once again thank all the folks at Midwestern University who took the time out of their day to show us around and give us a tour of the facility. One thing that I would be remiss not to mention, which I thought was really cool in terms of public-private partnerships, one thing that Commissioner Schnell and I sort of asked about, well, what's that building over there? Wasn't really on the tour. It turns out that the university wanted to have emergency responders closer to their campus. And the city of Glendale needed to establish another, basically, place where they could run an ambulance out of. And so they partnered together. And the university built the facility on their campus, and the city of Glendale staffs it with an ambulance and with emergency response personnel. So in a perfect public-private partnership, the university gets a EMS unit on its campus, which of course runs calls not just on the campus, it runs it all through the city of Glendale. But the city of Glendale didn't have to pay to construct a new facility for that ambulance. A great idea, and gee, perhaps one worth thinking about.
Many times over.
And to see that in effect and how it works right there, I thought was pretty neat. So not to put any pressure on anybody, but I thought that was a pretty good idea. And given where Midwestern University is located in Downers, you know, one could speculate, shall we say, on possibilities. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Commissioner?
No, I actually was going to bring that up if you didn't. So it was a great opportunity, I think, to see what a good neighbor the university is to the city of Glendale, and what a good neighbor it has been to Downers Grove. But I think there are probably other opportunities to be even a better good neighbor.
So which campus is better? And I don't want to have you take weather into consideration when you make your...
Ours is much greener.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. I didn't think of that.
But there is part of Downers Grove on the Glendale campus that you didn't talk about.
That's why I was saving it for you.
Oh. The crest of the university actually has Downers Grove in it. So,
Yes, the Downers Grove campus.
So it was kind of interesting to see that there's a little bit of Downers Grove in Glendale, Arizona.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So obviously it's a challenge to try to summarize 2.5 days or 3 days worth of the conference into the time that we've had today, but we've done our best, and again, we'll be merciful. But I just want to point out that the next stop for the Congress of Cities and Exposition will be in Boston, Massachusetts at the end of November of 2012. And I know we've had discussions about this, but regardless of all that, I think it's well worth to attend these, and I'm going to do my best, if my schedule permits, to attend the one in Boston as well. So I will just let everyone know that if you can, and if everything else works out that we're talking about right now, I would encourage you to do so. I know Commissioner Durkin has had the ability to go in the past, and you certainly learn a great deal in the networking with your peers and other municipalities is really hard to match.
You know, one other thing I wanted to bring up, you talk about the traffic calming that was brought back. The other thing that was brought back from Reno was the reverse 911 calling that we've implemented
That's right.
here. Because if you remember, that's how they notified the winner they notified the winner for that drawing from that organization. If you remember, they called you on your cell phone or emailed you that information, so.
I didn't know.
No, I didn't win either, so, but I know they emailed it.
So we've been going on a while, but we did want to, at least in a very concise fashion, hopefully concise fashion, share with the rest of the council and the community, sort of what we brought back from this conference, and why we think it's worthwhile to do so. But if there are any questions of the council about it, obviously we can entertain them now, or whenever. You know how to reach us, you know where we live. So with that, I'll end the mayor's report.
Under the manager's report, Mayor, just one quick item. We have updated the village website to include summaries of the public stormwater engagement meetings that took place in the last week of January. And we did post the questions that were asked during those meetings and the answers to them. We are tracking for a March 13th first reading of the final report regarding stormwater utility and a staff recommendation as well. So new information posted, aiming for March 13th for the next public discussion. And that ends our report tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Only 2 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance establishing turn restrictions at the corner of Main and Maple, and the second is an ordinance authorizing membership in the Northern Illinois Police Alarm System Organization. That is it.
Thank you very much. Council member reports and new business. Let's start with Commissioner Neustadt.
Thank you, Mayor. As everybody up here knows, we have a coffee with the council scheduled for this Saturday at the Downers Grove Public Library from 9 a.m. till whenever we're done, I think. We have the downstairs meeting rooms, and look forward to seeing whoever can come down and have an informal visit with your elected officials. That's all I have today.
Thank you. And I would also encourage everyone to come in a different location during less than warm months. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of thoughts I pulled away from tonight's meeting. One has been something that's been on my mind for a few years and was brought up by some of the folks that spoke up tonight, and that has to do with traffic studies. It always seems that we have a system where the petitioner hires their own traffic engineers to do the traffic studies, and I always was a proponent, and maybe it's something we could look into, is the village, the petitioner paying for a traffic study, but the village actually going out and getting the traffic engineers and hiring those traffic engineers for the petitioners, so that way when we have situations where people say the traffic study wasn't done at the right time, or there's questions, it might seem to be more fair. It's just something to think about. Let's see, your comments on your trip. I'm glad you were able to report on the trip. I now have heard of solar technology and cloud technology, and I'm just wondering where the rain technology, what's the new one coming up? So
Cold.
Was it?
Cold.
Cold? Okay.
C-O-L-D. We can all be zillionaires. Think of something.
We'll talk about that.
Mighty cold up here.
Lastly, another thing that occurred to me is we've had issues up here, with the Walgreens issue and the Downers Grove North issue and the neighborhoods, and the gentleman tonight was saying that, we aren't the type that are always online keeping track of things, and we don't know how to interact with the, also, basically from TCD3 we had, there was the thought that we should look into neighborhood groups or bettering communications with neighborhoods. And that was something that came out of TCD3, and I'm wondering if that's something that maybe we ought to get back into, looking into establishing some sort of neighborhood groups so that people who aren't always online or people who can't go online have a way of understanding, maybe with neighbors getting together and understanding the workings of the village, possibly the folks that, with the Walgreens issue now, maybe if they were more involved in the comprehensive plan early on, maybe they could have foreseen some of the things that might have been coming. So also budget issues and that type of stuff. So I think maybe we ought to look at the neighborhood, the recommendation of TCD3 regarding neighborhoods. And lastly, I did have the honor of representing you, Mayor, and the Village Council at the American Cancer Society's kickoff for its Relay for Life. They are sponsors for birthdays. There were survivors there, naturally stories of research, new treatments helping people, and support that they give. I was interested in their, I was interested in their transportation program, which tries to help patients get to and from their treatments. Naturally, there's simply not enough help out there, so if anyone wants to volunteer for such a transportation program, driving patients to and from, it's very flexible. If you're interested, contact me through the village. I'll get you in touch with the right people. Transportation is needed. And also they talked about some lobbying efforts that are going on. They made me aware of a move in Springfield to modify smoke-free Illinois, and cigarette companies outside of Illinois that are putting resources into changing it. So they also do that type of thing. Relay for Life, Downers Grove Woodridge, is June 29th, so save that date now, and as it comes, there'll be more information as it gets closer. Lastly, happy Valentine's Day to my Valentine. We have Valentine's Day. It's more than just a day. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnett.
I have nothing there.
Commissioner Durkin.
One quick one. I had the opportunity to have lunch with the Downers Grove Newton Lions this afternoon over at the Oak Trace Senior Living Community, and I must admit that we are in for one heck of a coffee with the council on April 21st. I've been forewarned that they are going to have a special breakfast menu for us and for anyone who's going to attend. So I just suggest we get our thinking caps on, because a couple of the residents already cornered me in the hallway asking me a lot of questions, and what type of questions are appropriate to ask us when we come. I said it's open game, so it'll sound to be a good one.
It does sound like it indeed. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Schnell.
I have nothing else.
Just a couple of things for my part is, again, I would also encourage everyone to come out to coffee with the council. There are a lot of things going on this weekend in Downers Grove, as there usually are. Lots to do. I know we wrapped up a very successful ice festival this last weekend. We had, I don't know if you would call it a good balance between whether it was nice for people and whether it was nice for ice, but at least the ice didn't melt before the event started, so that was nice. And a lot of people came out and enjoyed everything that was happening. It was a good event, and there was lots to do both during the daytime and in the evening when the ice sculptures were lit up. So I want to thank the Downtown Management Organization for putting it on again, and everyone that made it possible, and for everyone that came down and visited the businesses in our downtown Downers Grove during that event. And given the hour and everyone wants to go spend some time with their Valentine, I will just say one more thing, and that is that there are in fact only 131 days left until Downers Grove Grove Fest. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell? Aye. Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day and good night.